And I realized that there is no country for non-Spanish speakers. There's no country for people who might be ignorant. There's no country for people who might have different taste. And I'm what brought this to mind was last night's Super Bowl halftime performance by Bad Bunny. Now, for those of y'all that missed it, Bad Bunny put on an absolutely entertaining show. Let's not. There was a lot of. I could appreciate the stage production, the set design, and all of those things. He put on a great show, but the only problem was that 85-90% of it was in Spanish, and I'm not a native Spanish speaker, so I couldn't really follow with anything of I couldn't really follow with the performance. And I'm not a big fan of reggaeton, so that was a whole nother thing that I wasn't necessarily able to appreciate. But it made me think, that people are like, oh, well, if you didn't like the performance, you're racist, or if you just don't understand things, or you don't have culture, or it wasn't a problem when Kendrick Lamar was putting his performance. Hey, granted, this was the first time in history, or at least in recent history, that I understood how white people must have felt when hip hop and hip hop started to really take main stage and started to have major prevalence in America. Here it is it's a culture and language that is new to them, that they don't understand, a struggle that is that they don't understand, and now it seems like it's just thrust in their face. The only difference between hip hop and quote unquote black or urban music was that we were speaking English, and at times we were speaking Ebonics. Um, this performance, it was mostly Spanish, and you're doing it for the Super Bowl. And so when you are doing it through the Super Bowl, how many Spanish speakers are watching the Super Bowl? How many people who are how many people who speak English who aren't Spanish speakers were not able to follow through with the performance? Now, granted, some folks are like, "Oh, you don't need to understand the lyrics; you just want to dance." Okay, that's fine. But one, you're forcing me as somebody who doesn't necessarily like reggaeton and don't speak Spanish, like you have not allowed for me to be included in this at all. You haven't created a ramp for me to be included in your culture. You're just saying that this is my culture and this is what we're doing. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, with presenting your culture, but you're presenting your culture during the Super Bowl. And mind you, there were so many um culturally significant messaging that was in there, from the sugarcane crops, the people as sugarcane crops, to to the bodegas, to the party scene, to the people getting up there and working on the electrical poles, right? There was so much culture that was in there. There was so much culture and messaging that was in there that if you weren't necessarily Puerto Rican or of Latino descent or Latino culture, you weren't really exposed to Latino culture, all that went over your head. Fine, that's not a problem. But now you add on the fact that most of America doesn't speak English. I mean, most of America doesn't speak Spanish. So you've alienated all these people who were looking forward to this halftime show, right? Who look forward to the halftime show that now weren't able to follow through on it. Um, it's one of those things of how people with disabilities, right, are disadvantaged because if you have a hearing disability, you may not necessarily be able to hear everything. So that's why we have closed captioning, right? Could I at least gotten like Google Translate? Could I have gotten live translation? As a matter of fact, Coinbase, what was up with that BS commercial that y'all did where you had the Backstreet lyrics up, but you know what I'm saying? Like y'all could have provided translation services for the doggone song that was being done. But but regardless, you know, it's like you're not racist if you say if you're not racist if you're saying like the performance was whack. You're not racist if you say like, yo, it should have been in English. You're not racist for saying that. You're just saying, yo, hey, I'm a consumer. I'm a consumer of entertainment. And I reserve the right to not like certain things. I reserve the right to say like this is trash. And then on top of that, you have nothing but Spanish speaking during Black History Month. Just interesting. Just interesting. It's one of those things that that just really caught me was the fact that yo, you know what I mean? Like I'm glad that people enjoyed the performance. I'm glad that people enjoyed the performance. It doesn't take away from the fact that how many of y'all speak Spanish? How many of y'all actually listen to reggaeton? I mean, I'm not familiar with. I'm only familiar probably with one Bad Bunny song, right? And that's no slight to Bad Bunny. That's just saying like that he's not my groove. The only thing that I've heard was that song that it. I don't even know the name of the song. I just remember hearing it on TikTok so much because it got a lot of famous. It was is a TikTok famous song. Like this is America. This is America where we have so many cultures. We have so many cultures. The problem not with cultures. The problem is that language is utilized as a barrier. Language is utilized as a barrier. So it's one thing if I don't like it artistically. It's another thing if now like I can't even follow through with it. Especially like what's going on with it's just interesting. It's just interesting that I'm not a big fan of reggaeton. I've never been a big fan of reggaeton. And then now I'm watching a Super Bowl halftime show, and the only part that I understood of it was Lady Gaga's part. I didn't understand anything else. But that's how it goes. That's how it goes. You can see that the NFL is marketing to a different demographic. They want to bring in a new audience, and Bad Bunny is probably one of the biggest artists in the world right now. I get it. I totally get it. I totally get it. So, even though he doesn't necessarily even though he's probably one of the largest artists in the world, doesn't mean that the people who watch the NFL are totally aware of his music and totally aware of his significance. And that, even if they are, doesn't mean that they like his songs and doesn't mean that they understand his songs and doesn't mean that they understand Spanish. So it's very interesting just seeing what's going on in this country, the hostility that we have immigrants, towards immigrants versus what business decides to do, what the music industry decides to do in catering to them. Because at the end of the day, for them, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense, and they're going to go after the dollars, regardless of what happens in politics. So it's just been very interesting, very interesting. And you got folks that are saying, "Oh, he's wearing a dress and all this other thing." Like, whatever. I just think that it really speaks to how businesses can take a stance, how they can take a stance and they can do it in very subtle ways, but the level of influence that they have, that they do what's safe. They do what's safe instead of doing what's actually right. So if you're going to present the culture, and we got these tensions going on in our country right now, it's safe to have a Latino artist come up and Puerto Rican, you know, he's part of America, right? It's safe for him to be up on stage speaking Spanish and then speaking Spanish in America. Excuse me, in the United States. Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. But interesting, Puerto Rico doesn't have a congressional member in the U.S. Congress. So it's just very, very interesting how businesses will utilize people and utilize cultures to be able to kind of smooth things over. It's just very interesting. Like that's so layered. You have Bad Bunny, who's probably one of, like I said, one of the biggest artists, who's Puerto Rican, and Puerto Rico. Um, of course, they speak Spanish. They speak Spanish. They're part of the Americas. They're a territory of the United States, and it's not like America has a problem with Puerto Ricans, but America has a problem with immigrants. And, you see they have a problem with, it's not just Latino immigrants, they have a problem with African immigrants, they have a problem with uh, Afro Caribbean and Caribbean, and that has a problem with all kinds of immigrants. If you're not bringing in money, then we have a problem with you. So it's just very, very interesting how businesses will teeter that line. Um, how they'll teeter that line. It's very interesting, very interesting. But once again, I didn't like the performance. It was very successful. 135 million people tuned in for for it. Like clearly, obviously, very successful. Congratulations to him. But I was sitting there the whole time, just lost, just lost. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the think pieces because I'm not Puerto Rican. I didn't have that struggle, so I didn't fully understand and fully capture and grasp all of the imagery. But what I did get was, him saying, "Hey, here's all these countries. He had all these countries' flags, basically saying that all that's America. It is part of the Americas. It's the United States of it's North America, and then there's South America." And then you have the United States of America. So it's just very interesting. It's very interesting seeing the political messaging that goes on in the art, that goes on in media, and that goes on in entertainment. And then what's sad is that we treat our athletes and entertainers like intellectuals and politicians, and treat our intellectuals and politicians like athletes and entertainers. So we expect for our athletes and our entertainers to make these bold political statements during these times. And it in some ways, did he make a bold political statement? I wouldn't say bold, but he definitely made a political statement. Dope, dope. You know what I mean? Like if we're going to preach the message of unity, cool. I'm glad. I'm all here for a message of unity. Um, One of the things that I spoke about earlier was about it's all unity and it's all we're America until you got somebody from the Latino community calling me a nigga. And anybody that's lived in California is well aware of the tensions that have gone on between blacks and Mexicans. Um, if you're a millennial that lived in Los Angeles, you're well aware of the riots that used to happen and how LAUSD used to shut down the entire district because there were riots going on at schools. How you would have essays pulling up on high schoolers after school. Like you remember those things. You heard those stories. Whereas somebody in New York may not had those kinds of interactions with the Latino community. But what you also do see is like the Dominican Republic, right? And people, everybody wants to be black until it's time to be black, until it's time to claim to be black. And you see that with the Dominicans. I know black. No, 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 papi. No, no, papi. I know black. Soy Dominico. Soy Dominica. I know black. I know black, papi. No, papi. I know black. I know blacks. No, no, no negro. No negro. right? It's just interesting because in the United States, so many things have been racially coded, and then as a black person in America, you get reminded that you really have no allies, that you really have no friends, and that everybody is willing to jump on the bandwagon of your struggle to get a certain place, um but they're willing to jump on the bandwagon, they're willing to reap the benefits but not willing to stand out front with us in these causes. And I know that's something that I'm working through, and that I know that's not being said. Like, we want to say that we're all unified and this, that, and the third, and all this, that, and the, like, let's get it correct. Let's get it correct. My folks didn't immigrate to this country, right? And then people say no one is illegal on stolen land. So at some point in time, it belonged to somebody, and they decided to have borders. Jordan Brilliant said, I dated Latina from East LA, and it was not safe to go to her house because of racism. You know, right then and there, right? Anybody that's ever lived in California, they know that. They know that. And as much as we try to act like that doesn't happen, and that it's actually kumbaya, racial, all this racial kumbaya, it ain't really like that. It ain't really like that. So I don't mind. I don't mind. Uh, I look forward to seeing inclusion of different cultures, but let's not. I'm also not for acting like this isn't the reality that we also live in. That I experience racism in those communities as well. So it's just, you gotta. Nothing is all bad and nothing is all good. It's all contextual, and you just have to understand what the context is, and um, appreciate the context for what it is and what that information tells you. That in some sense, there's the aspirational goal of we are all Americans, right? North Americans and South Americans. But the reality is that everybody sees America as a lick and as the place of opportunity, and they're trying to get their resources and don't mind who they have to step on in order to get it. And if this is quote unquote your country, right? This is quote unquote our country, um, then I want to make sure that I reap the benefits of my country, reap the benefits of my tax dollars before anybody else does. That I get the majority, that I get the lion's share. Why? Because I can't go to your country and go and demand all of these resources and all of this preferential treatment and all of these privileges. Why? Because your country is set up for you. The benefits are set up for you. So people have no idea how good that they have it in Americans don't realize how good Americans have it. Americans don't realize how good immigrants have it in the United States, because you haven't tried becoming an expat or an immigrant in somebody else's country and realize how difficult it is. So only in America, only in America could you go in the one of the largest, if not the largest, sporting event in the nation, and have an entire halftime show, uh, where 85 or 90% of it is in a foreign language. But that's a business decision. That wasn't a political. That wasn't a government decision. That was a business decision. So something to think about, man. Something to think about. Something that I thought about, and I shared my thoughts on Facebook, and some folks didn't necessarily appreciate my perspective, which is okay, which is okay. But I'm gonna make sure to say like, hey, there's additional context to this that's not being said, and uh, just because you enjoy it doesn't mean that I have to enjoy it, and just because I didn't enjoy it doesn't mean that I'm racist. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that it wasn't my cup of tea. That I'm watching art, and as a consumer of art, I get to say that this is trash. So yeah. But I appreciate everybody for showing up. I'm gonna give all my shout outs. Jordan Brilliant, thank you for participating. Stacy, Hanukkah Evans, Jesus Molina, Bo 947, appreciate you. Appreciate everybody. Catalea Habanero, appreciate you. Yeah, always good hearing from y'all. Man, I really appreciate you. Really appreciate y'all. Um, oh, once again, if you guys do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, that I encourage you to get one. He is life. He has changed my 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 life. Thing is Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father but by me. Meaning that Jesus provided us the example to get closer to God. That He showed what is possible if you lock in with God, if you make your focus and make your relationship strong with God. And that can be one of the most challenging things. One of the things that has been so helpful for me is being able to come to God, coming to Yahweh, right? Coming to Yahweh with all of my frustrations, all of the things that my flesh wants to do, being able to tell him that and say, but Lord, I will do what you tell me to do. I will follow your word, and not my will, but your will be done, Father. But I'm going to express to you what it is that I'm feeling and what it is that I'm thinking. So if you do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, I encourage you um, to go to John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but shall have everlasting life. The life that we have here right now on earth is fleeting. Is fleeting. It's very short and fleeting when we look at it in the entire cosmos of things. And so our life is like a snap in God's time. And we live here in the natural, but we also exist in the supernatural. We exist in the spiritual. And this world is just is even more spiritual than it is physical. So what are we